Welcome to CultFans Live. Today we have two guests from Aerostorm and Abroad, Nathan Hoffman and China Khoral, who, between the two of them, and they often work together, have worked in nearly every capacity in the sound department across the Today we have two guests from Aerostorm and Abroad, 626 China Khoral, Dudes and Dragons, Inspired Guns, The Killing Pact, Dawn of the Dragon Slayer, Saga Curse of Shadow, The Crown and the Dragon, The Paladin Cycle, Dragonfire, the entire Mythica series, and many more. But of course, as we cover week to week while it's still in season, also for the Outpost. So let's see what it is we don't even realize they're putting together that we take in day to day on every episode. Hi guys, welcome to CultFans. I'm Minerva, there's Stacy, and unfortunately Shay couldn't be with us today. Now, before we get too deep into it, I'll remind our viewers that there were two sound effects pointed out in the opening today, made by our guest everyone is actually here for, Nathan and China. So, hi guys, we're stoked to have you, so is the audience. How y'all doing?
Great, we're
pretty good.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
I mean, no problem. Now, real quick, before we get into it, I'm going to ask the audience to take their guesses at how you think these two developed those two sounds, and then we'll read out the speculation about it to y'all later before, we ask them to actually tell you how they did it. So, for now, beyond making crazy, wild sound effects, would you want to take a minute and explain, what all you do? Because you have some pretty varied titles across features, ADR, sound mixer, dialogue mixer, so can you tell just basically the common audience what that adds up to?
Yeah. So what we do is it's called post-production sound. So that's the all-encompassing term for everything that we do. We are in charge of how a TV show or a movie sounds after it's been edited, and it's been shot and edited, and then we take what they recorded on set or on location, we clean it up, we smooth it out, we add, what do we add?
We add a lot of sound effects that could be anything from making it sound like we're in a different timer, which means there used to be cars and planes, and now we got to add birds and wagons and horses.
So background effects,
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we start going to the effects, which could be anything from the clashing of swords to someone fighting a huge monster or someone just picking up a cup, to be honest.
Yeah, well, and that kind of stuff is actually called Foley.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like the really detailed little sound. It's even down to cloth movement. If somebody moves on screen like this, I would have a little sound of cloth going, so so and then the final step in post-production sound is mixing. It's taking all of that stuff that we put in and then getting the music from the composer and then mixing it all together so it sounds like you hear it. So
okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious, do y'all just sit there and actually rub cloth together to make cloth sounds?
Yes,
I used to for a long time.
Yeah, we recently were introduced. We had a Foley team introduce themselves to us recently, and so we have used them for the Outpost and for a lot of other things. But that's just been fairly recently. Like all the Mythica movies and Dragonfire and some of those others you mentioned. By the way, I think that might have been the wrong reel that was run. We didn't do Saga Curse of the Shadow, and we didn't do The Crown and the Dragon. So
my bad on that one.
Okay.
I will clear that.
I
made 6 different reels for you.
I know, and you were so great, getting those approved. And I'm sorry.
That was my fault. That's me.
No problem. But anyway, for all the Mythica movies, it was just me sitting in front of a microphone rubbing cloth together, literally in this room.
And really hate it when people are walking upstairs and it's like, oh, so-and-so brought their kids today.
I would come in on Saturday mornings and do it mostly. That's when I would do Foley because nobody was here. So
yeah, with occasions.
Now, how did you really get it, both of you, this is for both of you, how did you really get into working sound? Like, did you grow up like, someday I'm gonna rub cloth together to make noises for film? Or is it something y'all just realized you were good at? Was it happenstance? How does one end up in the sound department?
So for me, my dad and mom actually are both music producers and writers, composers, and so I grew up with a music studio in my house. And then even as a kind of a youngish kid, I had this fascination with sound systems. So I remember at one point I had like 6 speakers all around this room hooked up to this old amplifier, and the speakers were from some turntable quadraphonic system or whatever. I would just build all sorts of sound systems, and I would put boards on top of each other and create little sound tunnels for the, I'd put my head in the middle and listen to the music that way. So I've always been kind of into that. Sorry about that. we have cable problems here.
Across the
And
streets.
yeah. So, and then at one point when I was newly married and I was just working at the local grocery store, and my dad said, I have a friend who does post-production sound up in Salt Lake City, which is about 45 minutes from here, a 45-minute drive. I don't know how many miles that is. That's how we do distance here. We say how long of a drive it is. But he said, yeah, he works up in Salt Lake City, and I think you two would really get along well. Your personalities would probably match really well. And so just go see if what he does and if he needs any help. And so I did, and I spent about 5 years with him, learning post-production sound and doing commercials and stuff like that. And then I wanted to branch out on my own and do movies as well. So I just taught myself. I looked online at a lot of forums and talked to a lot of industry experts, and just kind of figured out how you do a film, and stumbled through the first couple. I'm really proud of how they turned out, but they're not the best work you'll ever hear. But you got to start somewhere.
Feelings.
And yeah, so that's kind of how I did it. And it's over the years, my clientele has grown, and so I've become very busy, and so that's when China showed up. Do you want to tell her?
Yeah.
Tell them how you joined.
So when I was in 5th grade, I really loved watching plays, but the part that I loved the most wasn't the actors on stage, which are amazing, but like the people who are doing the spotlights and running the effects. And there was this huge soundboard that had all these switches and dials, and I'm like, how do you know what all those do? And so I wanted to get into technical theater, and I did that for the longest time, and I was actually the head of that and of the students. And one day there was a class you could take that was a week long, all day long at school in high school, that was about film production, music, and technical theater. So I'm like, oh yeah, it's about technical theater. I'll do that. I'll have fun. And we ended up learning about film, and I was like, oh, it's not that different. Oh, that's really fun. Oh wait,
Yeah.
you don't have to do things live and have everything screeching loud at you. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun. So I started getting into it, and we went on a tour to BluFire Studios, which is where I met Nate. But we really didn't like have any impression on one another the first time that we met. It was
she was just one of the students that
just
walked in. There were like 20 of you or something like that.
Yes, in this small little room.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And so yeah, that's how we met the first time. And then I went away and did my own college, my high school thing, and then the same class popped up the next year, and I'm like, you know what, I want to do that class again. So I did it. We came back and met him again, and he was working on, the first time it was Mythica 1, the second time I think it was Mythica 2. And you mentioned to the teacher, Greg Hansen, who had been one of your friend's fathers for the longest time.
Oh yeah, somebody I'd known since I was a kid. Yeah, was actually her teacher for this class.
Said, oh, I'm looking for an assistant. Do you have anyone in mind that you could think could handle this? And the job was mentioned to me. I came in for an interview on Mythica 2 being finished up, and I literally hopped in the water there, and I've been swimming ever since.
And started on Mythica 3, right?
Yeah. It was really fun.
That's fascinating, because I noticed like he'd been there earlier on, so you just kind of onboarded with him. Okay, now that's really cool. I'm trying to think of actually. Now you work for BluFire instead of directly for Aerostorm, but BluFire cooperates with Aerostorm a lot. From what I understand, Humphrey, the the alien demon thing was even designed by the CG department upstairs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
beyond
exactly.
beyond Aerostorm, would you mind telling us about a few pieces you guys have worked on that's not associated with them?
Yeah, there's another local production company. So they go by a few different names: Silver Peak Productions, Candlelight Media, but it's all kind of the same group.
I didn't know those were all the
And
same one.
yeah, so they came out with recently Not Cinderella's Type, Treacherous, The Killing Pact, which was on Lifetime.
Hour Behind.
An Hour Behind, yeah, which is a romantic comedy.
Ruling of the Heart, right?
Yeah, Ruling of the Heart. Yeah, so I was thinking, so who's our second biggest customer or client? And it's really them.
Yeah.
And funny enough, I just moved last year, where my house, and it wasn't very far. I just moved like, I don't know, maybe half a mile away. But now I live like almost right across the street from their production offices.
You're right about that.
Yeah. And so there's that, and I mix documentaries. There's one, I don't know if you've heard about the kids who spent their entire summer for like 7 years recreating Raiders of the Lost Ark shot by shot. There's a documentary that came out about that, and I was able to mix that. And then I've done a couple for my friend Loki Mulholland, whose mom is a civil rights icon. He's done some documentaries, and in fact, we just finished one, and I'm gonna go help him record some sound for another one tomorrow. That's An Ordinary Hero is about his mom, and then The Uncomfortable Truth is about institutional racism in America.
Yeah.
And then Black, White, and Us is about interracial adoptions, which we just finished up. So he's kind of following in his mom's footsteps and with the civil rights in that vein.
Okay.
And so I mix his stuff too. So yeah.
That's really cool. Anything real quick, or mostly the same ones he listed?
There is Thirst that I work on, which was a sci-fi.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That was the first one I ever worked on. There was Dudes and Dragons. Is that okay? So that's separate.
It's like
some of the
tell
same people.
Adam's there too.
Yeah.
And...
yeah. There's a lot of the same Aerostorm people that worked on Dudes and Dragons, but I was you actually helped with some of the sound.
I did.
They I won't tell the whole story, but basically they had they already had a mix done elsewhere, and it just wasn't cutting it. And, yeah, so they brought it to us, and I basically remixed the whole film, and China and I both added some sound effects that they needed. So yeah, turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, what was that drums one that we did for? It was about World War II.
Was it Soldier? I think I know the one you're there, because Dave Bresnahan was in that one too, I think.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm so sorry.
And she's like, I don't know. Okay.
Like, how do you not know this?
We'll try to come back to that if it pops back up. Now, you recently did a live stream that covered this, Nathan. But for those that missed it, what happens when you can't get an actor in for a session, and how does ADR work, and what are some of the behind the scenes tricks that people might not even realize you do?
Okay. Yeah. So ADR is like additional dialogue recording. I think that's my favorite acronym for it.
Yeah.
If you look it up, it's like automated dialogue replacement. I don't know, additional dialogue recording.
Like that.
Nobody knows what it means.
But what it means is lines from the actors that are additional or replacement lines for, if we have really noisy or dirty production sound and we need a clean take of it, an actor will come in for ADR, replace those lines. Or if there's additional lines that weren't recorded, we'll do those as well. And so we had an issue with Andrew Howard being in Puerto Rico and unavailable to I think he was filming down there, but we just couldn't lock down a time that he could come into a studio and record his ADR that was needed. Yeah. And so I became the de facto voice of Withers.
For what, 3 lines? 4 lines?
Oh, several lines, yeah, through a few different episodes. And China was actually really great in coaching me, because I would do something, she'd be like, no, try this, you know, do it like this, and pitch it up, you know. And so, yeah, in the Outpost, many times when Withers is talking, sometimes it'll be my voice.
We're not going to tell you which line.
It's like, can we get the citation on an episode, like timestamp? No.
Yeah.
Now, aside from that, which sounds really, really fun, actually. In regards to the Outpost, what's was the most challenging compared to other things you've worked on, for each of you? This is a question for both of you, actually. And in general, is there a particular sound that's harder to cover up than others, things that are more difficult or more fun?
So the main challenge for me on the Outpost compared to anything else I've ever done was the schedule. We had, I think it was an average of 2 weeks per episode. And then at the very end, like, I think we had 1 week to do episode 9. You know, that's 42 minutes of fantasy TV, you know.
Action packed.
we had to do in 1 week. So it was late nights and weekends for a long time. So that was my biggest challenge. Just, you know, just doing quality work in a very fast amount of time. I don't know if you've heard of the triangle, like that producers need to know about, but you've got fast, you've got cheap, and you've got good. Pick 2. Yes. You can't have all 3.
Yeah.
And so even though the Outpost is technically a low budget TV show, it was a pretty good budget for us. Yeah. So we had enough to, you know, hire the Foley team, who actually operate out of Russia. So they helped us out, and you know, I felt like we all were able to get paid fairly, so that wasn't a worry. So then we just had to do good work fast. So
it was,
yeah, and you know, it worked out. I think it turned out okay.
Like some of the feelings on that triangle, I just gotta say, feelings that works almost anywhere in life, though, honestly. Yeah. But exactly. What about you, China?
Oh, I think the hardest sounds for me were either the battle scenes, because you have the swords clashing, you have people getting hit and punched, and then you sometimes have horses, and you sometimes have another creature in there that you got to sound design, put it all together, and then have it walking around. And then there's also the what I like to call them, the screaming mimes, because they give me a freaking headache every time I try to find sounds for them, because they're so high pitched. They're known as plaguelings, but I couldn't remember their name for the longest time, so they were just screaming mimes. So, yeah.
Okay, so I'll sit here and talk nerd shop all day if I don't stop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hand off to Stacy for a while. She'll pick up, and then we'll end up pulling from the audience later on.
Okay, we'll talk nerd shop later then.
Hi guys, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I have to ask you both, what has been, sorry, my mic and stuff's acting a little squirrely. Y'all wouldn't understand that, would you?
No, not a bit. Technology works every time, always, right?
Especially when you spill water on it.
What, with Aerostorm, I know they make a lot of dragon sounds in a few movies, various ones. What do you guys do to make those sounds? What is the infamous dragon sound that we all hear in these movies that we just absolutely love?
Yes, that one.
It's not even the same species.
Well, it's close. I think it was, I'm trying to remember which was the first
dragon.
Oh, it was Dawn of the Dragon Slayer. I was like, okay, we need to have like an iconic dragon screech. So I can't go to, I had a very limited sound library at the time, and so I couldn't exactly type in dragon screech and get something great. I might have gotten something not so great. So I had to start looking elsewhere, and so I was listening to bird sounds, and I found a hawk screech that I really liked. And I'm trying to remember if I think I pitched it down and extended it So it was lower and longer, and that became the base for this main dragon screech that I think you're talking about. I think you know, we can all kind of hear it in our heads if we've seen these movies. So that's actually a hawk screech that's been processed.
If it works. We don't know what it is.
Yeah. And then for various other little things, like I remember when I don't know why I remember this, but there's a part in Dawn of the Dragon Slayer where the dragon kind of rears back and gets ready to blow fire, and I think I used some sort of little parrot squawk sort of thing for like its preparation, and you know, so you know, it varies from show to show, but that main hawk screech is the one that we always hear.
You could also use seals.
Yes, yeah, we use seals for a lot. Seals make awesome sounds, so you can hear seals being cave monsters in Mythica. You can hear them being orcs in other shows. Yeah.
Very, very handy, creative.
Seals and hawks are our friends.
Seals are very vocal.
Yes.
My daughter has a YouTube thing that she listens to that just has various seals. Just so I understand that amazingly enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the area of artsy creation, fun question. I know you guys mentioned this when you done your live stream with the Mythica and Outpost Musings, but I know a lot of people may have missed that. So can you tell us a little bit about the Husky and the use of him in the Outpost and Mythica?
Yeah. You know, like I mentioned, we moved to a different house last year, but the house that we had before that was next door to a family that owned a husky dog named Kenai. And for a while, they were trying to figure out what the best way to house Kenai was, because he's a big dog, you know. And so at one point, they were trying out a pen. It kind of like a chain link fence pen in their backyard, right up against our fence. And they would just leave him in that fence, you know, when the weather was good. But he hated it so much. He would just yowl and cry and make these otherworldly sounds just for hours on end. And so
sounds of the pit. It's so crazy.
At one point I was just like, you know what? I got to take advantage of this. So I took my little recorder out there and I just recorded Kenai doing his, you know, I don't even know. It was crazy stuff.
His temper tantrum.
Yeah. And so when in Mythica, Quest for Heroes, they had the what did they call it? The something wolf. Dire wolf?
Dire wolf, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so. They had that big creature come out and chase him, but then he ended up getting eaten by an ogre.
That was fun.
So I thought, oh, that's the perfect time to use that crazy sound from Kenai. So when the wolf was getting eaten by the ogre, that's when I had those screeches from Kenai, and then they made another appearance for the Outpost, episode 7,
which some of you may or may not have seen yet.
Yeah, you want to tell them about that one?
So that one was very interesting because it needed to be this huge creature that.
I'm talking about the bone wolf.
About the bone wolf. It's called the bone wolf. It has bones sticking out of it everywhere, like in Mythica. And it was really fun because it's supposed to be like this huge creature, but then it ends up getting hurt and it ends up running away. And I'm just like, what on earth can I use? And I remember him telling me this story and all this, and I'm like, you know what? That'd be kind of fun because it's otherworldly, it's really creepy, and it really sounds like it's in pain. And so I used that along with some other things, and it worked out really well.
Yeah, it sounds like he got schooled by Janzo as he's running away.
Oh yes, Janzo's awesome.
It did. It sounded great. You wouldn't think, this sounds like my neighbor's dog.
Yep, and it was literally my neighbor's dog.
Did the dog get credit, Nate?
No. Sorry.
This is his credit. Thank you, Kenai.
Yep.
Now, before we go to the audience, just want to give you a chance to kind of show us around what types of equipment maybe you guys use that you prefer to use, what your favorite things to work on are, kind of nerd us out just a little bit and show the guys that's watching what you do and with what?
Okay. Well, we're on my studio computer right now, so I can't actually show you, but I can tell you what it's actually a much simpler setup than people used to have.
Yeah.
It used to be that if you were going to do post-production sound, you had to have this huge console that cost more than your house, and all these different audio cards and interfaces all over, maybe a whole separate room for all your equipment. But nowadays you don't have to have that. They're still out there, and it's fun to visit those places. But my studio right here, it just has it's called a Digidesign 003. It's like a really old piece of equipment, but it's great. It's got 8 motorized faders, and it's got buttons, for solo and mute, and the little knobs for panning. And so that's what I use to mix along with the mouse and keyboard. It's about the size of a pizza box. Yeah, exactly. It's not that big. And I use it on my iMac Pro, which I just got this year. And it's like a 10-core machine with 64 gigs of RAM, so it's a pretty sweet machine. And then the software is Pro Tools Ultimate. It used to be called Pro Tools HD, but and you used to have hardware hooked up with it, so you were into it, $10,000 at least.
Arm and a leg, and you half your soul.
Now, yeah, exactly. But now it's just a standalone piece of software. It's really powerful. The computer's super powerful, so I just rely on that to get the job done. And then we have a 7.1 surround speaker system in here, so almost nobody asks for 7.1 in the indie world, but we've got it if someone needs it.
You can see them right there, the white spots. See if I can point to them. See, there's one. Yeah. And there's the other one.
Those are the surround back speakers, and then the surround speakers. There's one right.
He's trying.
I can't find it. So yeah, but everything we do as far as TV and film goes is 5.1 surround. So we got a great subwoofer, a 12-inch subwoofer under us, and it's that's it. Oh, and the software. There's tons of software that I've gotten over the years, plugins that do all kinds of fun things. Even one that I recently showed China that she liked. It's called Vocaline. So if we're doing ADR and we have the original line and we need to replace it with a new line, I can feed in the old line into Vocaline, and then feed in the new line and say match it up, and it'll make it fit.
So if you have a word that's like said half a frame or two, like a little bit later than the original, it literally just moves it around just perfectly so it matches exactly right. And I'm just like,
we have
Warlock!
We have software that removes reverb, which was not possible until a few years ago. We have software that isolates dialogue, that removes noise, removes clicks and pops and wind and rustle. It's
poor
crazy.
Russell. That's our joke around here.
De-wrestling. Yeah, poor Russell. Nobody wants him. So yeah, anyway, that's what I work with. Do you want to tell them real quick what you got?
Yeah, I actually upgraded recently, so I'll tell you about what I originally worked on, which was pretty simple. I had a
Welcome to CultFans
MacBook
Live. Today
Pro
we have 2 guests
that
from here.
was 13
abroad, Nathan Hoffman and China Khoral.
And I had 2 screens that came off of that. Sometimes that would overheat my system, so I'd have to remove one. And I had the mouse, I had the license, I had a couple of drives plugged into it, and that's what I worked on.
And you used the same Pro Tools HD software.
Same Pro Tools and SoundMiner to find all the sounds that I needed for sound designing, so I could just type in a word, and there are a bunch of sounds that kind of have that name.
So yeah, you can work on films on a laptop. You can't necessarily mix them.
No, mixing is a different animal.
Yeah, you need a space, and a surround sound system to mix them.
But the only issue is you have to have it constantly air conditioned, otherwise that thing goes nuts. And when it goes nuts, it starts to overheat.
Are you talking about the laptop?
Yeah, the laptop. It starts to overheat, and then it starts to not work right, and then it starts to get the spinning ball of death that goes on for about an hour. So I upgraded it, and I got...
You've got a Mac Pro now.
Yeah, Mac Pro.
The one it looks like a little black trash can.
Yeah, I call it. That's what I was gonna say. I'm like, what is the trash can called?
Yeah.
And so now I actually have 3 screens that work all the time.
Yeah.
And nice. I actually have a wireless mouse from Apple that works really well because I used to like hook my mouse cord on everything. I'm still trying to figure out the headphone cord and having it not hook on everything.
Yeah, but you still just work on headphones, and you do the stuff. You work on a bunch of sound design and sound editing, and then you give it to me, and then I mix it on my bass system. So,
sometimes I can't even hear what he's doing because I have to turn it up loud so that way I don't hear what he's mixing and go, was that on my
because
system?
we are in the same room. We only have one room.
I literally work right here. This is where I work, and he's working right there. If I wanted to, I could pester him all day, which I do.
Anyway, sorry. I hope we didn't get too boring with that, but that's what we use.
No, that's perfect. Perfect. Y'all explained it nicely. Okay, let's see here. Okay. Well, we don't want to run over and eat up all of your day, but before we go, want to definitely look at the audience questions and see what we've got going there. Let's see. We've been Shay's helped me take some of them while we were chatting. So let's see what we got from the guys that's been listening and watching. Let's see. And some of these, if we've hit on, I'll try to group some of these together so we can kind of put them all together and go on from there. Judy Arsenault has a couple of questions for you guys.
Okay.
Can you explain a little bit more about the ADR lines and also anybody that you've had to work with that's been harder to work with? Maybe Mr. Howard or somebody like that, maybe. Since he's, unreachable. And how long does it usually take on average to work on an episode?
Okay. So, so the ADR, ideally, will have the actors come in and record their own lines. We talked about voice matching where I or maybe someone else, you've done a little bit,
I've done a little bit. I've done some things for when, like, sneezing, grunting, breathing, and we just changed the pitch a little bit to match them. But I didn't have to do any major lines for them.
Yeah, I've done lines for Withers, like we said. I've done lines for Dread. I think I just did one line for Dread.
Yeah, it was.
I did a line for there was one more. I did some Garrett stuff, but just like laughing and like sighing and breathing and stuff like that. In the next episode that's going to air in the U.S., episode 9.
Did you end up doing
Calcazar?
Yeah.
Was that? Yes.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Calcazar. It wasn't.
No,
it was the Smith.
Yes.
Oops, sorry.
Ow!
I'm so sorry. We have
okay, I'm not the
issues
clumsy
here.
one today. I can say that.
Sorry about that. But yeah, so I did. It was actually, spoiler alert if you haven't seen episode 5 and 6. But I did a whispered line or two during the Smith's death scene for him.
The saddest episode ever.
Yes.
I wanted more of him in that season.
I know.
I think it was fun though.
But okay, but other than us having to voice match is the best when the actors come in. So we've actually had Jessica, Anand, Jake, Andrew came in when he was here. Some others as well come in and record ADR right here in this room for us. But usually they're going to be out where they are in Australia or the UK or LA, and so they'll record ADR there in studios.
Yeah, and they just send them over the air.
Yeah. Let's see, but everybody's been really good to work with. I mean, we wouldn't really dish on anyone anyway.
No. I mean, you can definitely tell when it's someone's first time, but they pick it up so fast, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. Everybody's been really nice and cool to work with. So, sorry, no juicy stories there.
Well, you never know when you might pick up one. So, keep those in your hat for later.
Write them down.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take for an episode? And have you ever been told to redo your work?
I'll talk about that one. You get to tell about the time how long it takes to do an episode.
Okay. So you're gonna...
I'm gonna go right now. Okay.
Yeah,
so I have had to redo my work. So when I first started doing the Plaguelings, they wanted I didn't really have anything to go on what they wanted, so I kind of went by what they kind of had given me as ideas, which were a couple of sounds. So I pieced it together. It was a lot of high pitch and grunting to make it sound like this person who was normal changed and is an animal now, and they aren't there anymore. And we had the parasite and then the plagueling, the actual plagueling, inside them screeching. And so I had that, and then we sent it off, and they're like, we don't really want the grunting. We don't want any of the human there at all. We just want the screeching. So we did that. And then it went up another tier, and they were like, no. We want grunting. We want this to feel powerful. And I'm just like, okay. So I ended up adding them again, but I deleted them completely. So it wasn't just like, and add. It was just like, okay, let's sit down and do this again. I liked it. It was fun.
Yeah. As far as me having to redo work, they actually remixed episode 1.
Yes.
Because I had never worked with Dean Devlin before, and he has a very specific way he likes his stuff mixed.
Yeah.
And it's different than I've ever heard before. Like there's certain rules that they go by that I've never heard of before. And so
I learned a lot of things.
Yeah. And so I had to learn how they liked it. And so I think in the interest of time, they got episode 1. Somebody over at Electric heard it and was like, "Oh, this sounds awesome. This is rocking. You know, they're gonna love it." But then they listened to it, and it turns out it wasn't the way that they liked their shows mixed. So in the interest of time, they actually remixed it with Dean Devlin's guy, Hugh Waddell, who I worked with really closely throughout the whole series. And that was probably the best way for me to learn how they like their stuff mixed. I just watched it and I was like, oh, they do this, they don't do this. Okay, all right. So yeah, and then for all the other episodes, I would send them a mix. They would all get together over at Electric Entertainment in LA, and they would make notes and send them back, and I would implement those notes, send them a new mix, and most of the time that's all it took. Sometimes it was two rounds of notes, but most of the time it was just one.
Yeah, and I think rarely it was 3, but it was just like we heard this one thing, and it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and then they'd approve it and send it off. So it was a really interesting way to work. And the directors had no say. The directors of the shows, of the episodes, had no say in the sound, which was also interesting. I've never
very strange.
Never had that before. Yeah. So it was just me making it sound like I wanted it to, and then I sent it to them, and they told me what else they wanted, and I'd do it, and we'd be done. But yeah, I think on average, probably about 2 weeks per episode. Yeah. Sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. Like we said at the end, episode 9 was just 1 week, and that was the craziest thing I've ever done.
But at the same time that we're working on each of those, we're working on like 2 other episodes at the same time.
Oh yeah, we would definitely be
2 weeks completely. It's 2 weeks of here's a day, here's a day, here's a day, here's a day. But that day might be split up. Okay, we do episode 5. No, we didn't do 5. We do episode 6 today, and then in the afternoon we do 7. But then we got to do some lines for 8 here, and it was a mess. But
yeah,
we got things done. It was good.
The whole thing was a very quick schedule.
Yeah.
What let's see, one of the next questions they came up with is, and I actually like this one too, Cast Girl Sam says, do you guys ever find yourself analyzing sound effects when watching other TVs or movies or shows?
Yes I do.
All the time. Yep.
I'll be watching something and I'll just be sitting there and I go, oh, I know that sound effect. Oh, okay, that's cool. And I'll be like, oh, but they could have done it this way and this way. So I'm like, stop.
Yeah,
I'm watching something.
It's easy to go into the overanalyzing mode. Yeah, so I have to consciously say, no, just enjoy the movie. It's fine. Because otherwise I'll start listening and
picking it apart and going, how would I have done this? And oh, how did they do that? And,
yeah, it definitely affects my watching though. I definitely notice the sound every time.
But it's honestly more fun because you can hear more things than what you usually do because you're doing that. So yeah.
Notice more stuff, yeah.
Give and take.
Ange C wants to know, what's the strangest thing that you've used to create a sound effect?
The strangest thing.
I'm trying to think. We've used sticks, we've used metal, we've used mixing parts. We've used sticks, we've used cloth, we've used shoes, we've used buckles, we've we tend to just use what's ever around. So if we needed, strange thing, we needed some cards flipped one day, and I had some cards sitting on my table, some playing cards. So that's what was random. And I actually had that in the studio.
I think the most unexpected thing is probably our own voices.
Yeah, that's what
sometimes
I was gonna say,
we'll want a certain sound effect, and it's easy to hear it in your head, and it's also kind of easy to make that sound
to mimic it,
with your mouth, you know. And so there have been a couple of times when we've wanted a certain sound and we've done it, we've performed it, and then modulated it and altered it a little bit and actually used that sound as a sound effect. Yeah. I think in Mythica,
let me kick in real quick here. The audience has been like trying to turn inside out over those sound effects you sent me, so that's kind of on topic here. How about you take a second and go on that?
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. So we can go ahead and tell them what those sounds are.
Go for it.
Okay. Do you want to tell yours first?
Yeah, I'll do mine first. So we were working on a science fiction horror movie called Thirst, where there's this alien that it has this like thing that ejects out of it and grabs onto you and sucks your blood, and you know it's crazy. And so I wanted to create a sound effect for that alien where if once the audience heard it, they knew that thing was going to come out and someone was going to die. So
spoiler.
And so I was like, I remember working through this, I'm like, and I want a sound effect that kind of goes, you know, kind of like that. And then I was like, wait a minute, get in front of the microphone. and it's, in fact, it's the microphone that we are talking to you on right now. I got in front of the microphone and I just went, and then I processed it heavily, and that's what turned out to be that sound effect we played at the beginning. That we call it the pre-eject screech. So ejecting and killing someone. So that was literally me in front of the microphone, just doing that with my mouth. So you want to?
Yeah, and in the same film, we had it where they was like moving around, and we needed kind of like this purring, mechanical kind of ish sound. We know it's stalking and it's thinking and it's about to do something, and so we were just like, I don't know, there's nothing that's like really, really different. And ever since I was a kid, I always made these weird noises that my mother hated. It rung in her ears wrong or something, but I enjoy making them. And so I was just sitting here and doing, and Nate was like, can we record that and like modulate it and use it as this? And I'm like, oh yeah, sure, let's do that. It was so much fun.
So we call it the China Flutter. That's literally what it's called in the Pro Tools session.
China Flutter.
China Flutter. Okay, it's time to add some China Flutter here. And,
so kids, if you make weird noises, that's actually marketable.
So both of those noises were created by us with our mouths.
Yeah.
With your own faces. Now.
With our faces, yep.
I think we've got time for one more, Stacy. Go ahead, pull one more.
Okay. Floppy Jalopy wants to know, what is your favorite food to munch on while you're working?
Oh. Food.
Don't you have some right there that you were saying you were
I do, but they're not my favorite.
This is one of my favorites. And this is not meant to be a promotion, but I love peanut M&Ms. So,
yes, so do I.
Brought to you by Nestle. No.
Yes, exactly. Mars or whatever.
It's empty to here.
So we got this just a few days ago at Costco. This huge, thing, and it's just been me in China, and so we've already chomped that much. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have admitted that, but that's one of my favorite snacks.
Yeah, I enjoy a lot of like dried fruits with like chocolates on. We have like mango here, and we have some blueberries with chocolate on it. Yeah. I also enjoy Pocky. I have like 3 different types here, but my favorite one is popcorners, and we couldn't find them for the longest time. It was
popcorners.
Yeah, popcorners.
So,
popcorn that has been made into a chip, and it's
Squish
really
them
good.
into chips. Yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
pretty
Your
fun.
desk looks like my desk. It's amazing.
And we couldn't find it for the longest time, so all through the outpost, I was like craving popcorners, and I couldn't find it. And then, like, a couple of days after the outpost, we found them in Winco, and I'm just like, so I got one of every type, and it was gone in like 3 days.
Yep, that's that's your favorite.
That is my favorite.
Well, one last question.
Mm-hmm.
What, with the Outpost nearing the end of the season, what's the next project coming that we can look to hear from you guys? Is there anything in the works that's coming that you guys are working on that we can be, if I remember right, isn't there some work with maybe Little Women or something that...
Yes, that is the next thing that's coming out. I did, we were in charge of post-production sound for Little Women, and so China was a sound effects editor on that, and I did like the dialogue editing, and we came up with a great mix, and then they decided that they were going to actually expand the theatrical release. It's going to be all over the country on September 28th, and so they wanted to, since we don't have a big what they call them dub stages. It's like a big theater, basically a mixing theater. We don't have that. They wanted to just make sure that it sounded fantastic in a huge theater setting. So they actually we sent the work that we did over to Warner Brothers. Sorry, and they did just kind of a final polished theatrical mix on it. So. We did most of the post-production sound work on it, and they did some of the final bits just to make sure, because they've got the awesome huge dub stages, and they mix movies all the time for theatrical release. A lot of the movies that we mix are for TV or
broadcast.
Blu-ray, broadcast. So, but we were heavily involved with Little Women, and in fact we thought we were going to be the only ones doing it. Until they made that decision, but I'm sure it'll sound great. So I'm excited for that.
Now, someone had mentioned something about. Do you have a line in the trailer or something of Little Women?
Yes. I don't know. I don't think it's in the current trailer. The Little Women has kind of evolved quite a bit. Yes. It's become a much bigger release than we thought it was going to be. And so originally, we had done one trailer for it that actually did play in some theaters around here. And in that trailer, Freddie says it's not quite ready. He's talking to Joe.
I didn't know this. I'm at college sometimes, so I'm not always in the studio.
And it worked fine in the actual movie. So I kept that original line that he recorded in the movie. But in a trailer setting, with all the music and stuff going, I had to turn it up louder. And there was too much going on in the background. It was too dirty of a line. And so I actually did some voice matching, and I did my best impression of Ian Bohen as Freddie. And I said, it's not quite ready. And that was me in that original trailer. So. So I will if I need a voice match I can do it, I will do it.
That is so awesome. Well, thanks again, you guys, for coming to talk with us today. Unless Minerva has something that she wants to throw in there, I hope you've enjoyed talking with us. I know we've definitely enjoyed having you guys. And we definitely look forward to what's to come with the Outpost, and hope to hear more from the Aerostorm, BluFire in general. So
thanks for having us.
Hand it over to Minerva and let her finish out.
And like she said, thank you so much for showing up. We love talking to people like you, because without people like you, we have no show. Like, it's so easy to just chase after those actors, and we really appreciate you coming to talk with us, show people even how it works behind the scenes. And to the viewers that showed up to support and actually be interested in this, thank you for watching Cult Fans Line. Keep live. Keep tuning in, though. I mean, we've got Dave Bresnahan coming up. We've got Adam Johnson swears he's going to show up one of these days. So we'll see. But, you know, make sure you guys follow, like, subscribe, do all of the things. We've got more Cult Fandom news coming up a few days away. Is there anything else that y'all want to say before you head off?
Watch the Outpost. It's really fun, and some of the other pieces that we've done.
Yeah, and we're all hoping for a season 2. We haven't heard anything official, but it's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I'll take that as a good sign. It's looking good. You hear that, everyone? It's looking good.
Yeah, we're not announcing anything.
No.
But,
totally not announcing. But anyway, on the way out, for anyone who just happens to be tuning in, be it an Extinct fan or someone else who's followed you across any other sound work, we're going to play out the next episode or the next preview of the episode for The Outpost. And then, you know, thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great one.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right, thank you.
You may have been special before we got here, but you're nobody. Hello, princess.
What's happening?
They're going to eat us.
The Outpost, Summer Series, Tuesday, September 25th on the CW.